walking down the street, sure that someone was following her. She didn't dare look behind, as she would rather just walk on and hopefully get to somewhere where there were people around, other than turn around and have someone attack her. It was getting dark, and she saw a train station across the road, so she walked across to it. When she got into the station, thankfully there were other people in the platform, but strangely, she didn't feel any bit safer. She thought about getting on a train, but decided to just wait by a group of people first to gather herself. She assumed it was just her paranoia, but there was something bothering her that she didn't know what it was. People were acting strange, and she had noticed there were police around. She had wondered why there was no train, as she was standing there for a few minutes now. There were lots of people looking down in the track, across a tape that said "Police line, do not cross." She didn't realise sooner because she seemed to be in a daze, wondering why she was feeling so strange. She wondered what all the people were looking at, and when she walked over and looked down, she screamed with horror as she looked down at herself, dead on the train line. She was screaming and screaming, but no one seemed to take any notice of her. She had then noticed someone had made eye contact with her, and they seemed to notice her. They walked over to her and said, "Did you just realise you're like me, one of the dead?" She spoke on. "Don't worry, it gets better. I watch the news to see where there are local deaths. That way at least you could talk to someone." Sharon froze, taking in the words that the girl was telling her, realising she was dead. Tracy was 8 years old and had a habit of burying things in the garden. Her mom didn't really mind, as she used to remember when she was her age, she used to think she could dig to Australia, since it was cold down under. One night it was a doll she buried. The next night it was a teddy bear she buried. And it really upset her mom one night when it was a stray cat she was burying. Jackie, her mom, screamed when she saw the dead stray cat and asked Tracy where did she get it. Tracy said the devil told her to bury it. Jackie was very concerned and knew that Tracy had to be seen by a therapist. Jackie tried to find out, did Tracy find the cat or actually kill it herself? Tracy went through months and months of therapy, and thankfully she didn't bury anything else until one night. Jackie saw Tracy dig a hole, and she was amazed at how big the hole was. She said to Tracy, "Sweetie, you know you're not meant to bury anything anymore," Tracy said. "I know, Mother, but this is the very last thing I will ever bury." Jackie asked her what it was. Tracy pulled out a gun and said, "You, Mother." Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Megan was looking through her laptop for some place to live in New York. She knew that it would be very expensive, but she had to move for her new job. She was surprised, shocked and delighted when she saw that there seemed to be an apartment for rent very near where she was going to work. There were no photos of it, but she had to take a look, so that's exactly what she did. When she arrived at the apartment, there was a man opened the door and said to her, "Hello, you must be Megan. My name is Andrew. Well, welcome to the apartment. You can have this for $4,500 a month." She couldn't believe what he just said, so she asked him did he mean $4,500, and he said yes. When she looked inside the apartment, she couldn't believe the size of it for being in central New York and so reasonable. Megan was a pickpocket by choice. She didn't need the money, but she loved the thrill of it. She knew there were people who were kleptomaniacs, but she didn't consider herself one. She preferred to look at it as a cheap thrill. She was down the road from her apartment in a really nice clothes shop and stole a beautiful dress for $1,300. She was buzzing walking down the street, but by the time she got back to her apartment, the buzz was gone. After a few weeks, Megan got to know Andrew. She went to his apartment, which was just across from hers, and they were drinking wine. She noticed that she saw all his apartment, every room bar one, and when she asked about it, Andrew told her that it was his mom who was sick and he was looking after her, and he preferred her not to be disturbed. One night, Megan walked into Andrew's apartment and the TV was on. He was asleep on the sofa, and there was this weird horror on the TV with a girl hanging from a ceiling. She coughed a little to wake Andrew. Andrew woke up with a start and put the TV off and said, "Sorry, I was just watching some horror." Megan moved closer and went to kiss him and sneaked the keys from his pocket. She was really determined to see what was in that room. She said to Andrew, "Hey, I'm exhausted, could I just chill out here? But if you could grab a really nice bottle of wine I have in my fridge, I would really appreciate it so much." When Andrew left for her apartment, she quickly tried all the keys until she got the right one and opened the door. She didn't want to wake his mom, but she had to have a look as it all seemed very strange. She froze in horror when what she saw was a woman hanging from a wall. It looked familiar when it finally hit her that it wasn't a horror movie on Andrew's TV. He was watching a live feed of what was happening in this room, and he had a girl tied up, hanging from the ceiling with blades on the floor underneath. She heard a noise and turned around to see Andrew holding a knife, and he said, "Don't you know it's very bad to snoop around behind people's backs?" Then Andrew stabbed Megan until she bled to death. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content. Jason was sitting at a local bar one night in October, and he was talking to his friend Michael about making a very scary scarecrow that would frighten anyone away. He told his friend, "I am going to make the most frightening scarecrow. Believe me, it is going to be the most realistic scarecrow you will be able to see, and all these pesky high school kids who come around my way drinking, well, they will get such a fright, and so bad that they will never come back again to drink or do whatever it is they do around my way. Just you wait and see. I'm going to have it ready for Halloween." His friend looked at him strangely and said, "How are you going to make a scarecrow to frighten teenagers? I mean, they hardly scare little kids." Jason gave a sinister smile and said, "Just you wait and see." That night, Jason went into the barn and got as much straw that he needed to make the scarecrow. 2 days later, his friend Michael was trying to call Jason, but there was no answer. He kept calling his phone, but he kept getting onto the answer machine. After eventually giving up, he walked over to Jason's house and knocked on the door, but there was no answer. He looked into the field and saw a scarecrow, no doubt the one Jason was telling him about. Michael walked up to the scarecrow and looked at it to see what all the fuss was about and what made it so scary. As he looked at it, something seemed familiar, but he didn't know what. He walked back to his house. 3 days passed and Jason hadn't heard from Michael. Something told him to go to his house to check, and when he did once again, there was no answer. He heard some shouting up towards the scarecrow. He ran up to see what it was, and he screamed with fright when he saw 4 teenagers lying down next to it, covered in blood, after being stabbed numerous times with a fork. He heard some movement and looked around. Then he froze in fear, realizing no one was there except the scarecrow. He looked up at it, and he saw its eyes moving. He now knew what seemed familiar. It was Jason's eyes. He realized that the scarecrow was actually Jason. Then the scarecrow gave a sinister smile, which was Jason's sinister smile. It was Jason under the scarecrow, and he smiled and gave a weird laugh. Michael screamed, and with that, 2 police officers held their guns up to him. "Freeze, you're under arrest." When he tried to explain to the police the scarecrow was Jason, they looked at him like he was crazy, and he was eventually arrested for the murder of the teenage boys that he didn't commit. Jason's body was found inside the scarecrow, and the community and everyone put it down to suicide. But no one knew the truth. Jason sacrificed himself to become the most frightening scarecrow only when it suited him, which was the reason he didn't frighten Michael. One night Michael was in his prison cell. He had a dream where Jason told him he never intended him to get blamed for his crimes. When he woke up, he found straw in his bed.